Unlike smoking, vaping is currently legal indoors and in public places. Vapists are becoming more and more common, and it's not unusual to see a person vaping in a cafe or restaurant or other place of business. And if you're not bothering anyone, then fair enough. However, there is a minority of vapists that seem to think that they can vape anytime, anywhere, regardless of the public's feelings towards them blowing clouds in their favourite cafe. These individuals seem steadfast in their beliefs that they can vape anywhere and nobody can tell them otherwise. I'm talking about the militant ones, the ones that don't even consider whether it's a good time or a good place to vape. They just whop it out and start sucking. The first people to consider should be those around you, the fellow diners at the restaurant, the readers at the library, the audience at the show, etc. The overwhelming majority of people here in the UK are non-smokers, and the negative aspects of smoking are so deeply ingrained in society now that whenever somebody sees a cloud of smoke rising from a crowd, the immediate response from most people will be loud tutting and verbal disapproval. This behaviour is not only normal, it's encouraged. Smoking has become denormalised. Anyone forced to breathe second-hand smoke has the right to ask you to move away or stop. It's unlikely a smoker will challenge that request because they know the etiquette and respect the law, in most cases. But with vaping being such a recent thing, there's no legislation or etiquette's really been established yet. Most people won't even look at what's in a vapist's hand. They'll just see a cloud of smoke rising and immediately assume that you're a bad person or at the very least discourteous. Even if they acknowledge that you're vaping and not smoking, the natural reaction is usually negative, especially in places around food or children. The fact that we know that second-hand vape is pretty harmless is irrelevant. The negativity is towards the behaviour, not the concept. Another party to consider is the business owner and their employees. A business is required to display a no smoking sign by law, and that includes public transport. Smoking is legal in outdoor areas like gardens and street tables, but it's common for vapists to ignore the signs on the strength of the fact that what they're doing is not smoking. However true this may be, non-smokers and people not accustomed to vaping will not acknowledge the difference. For example, a popular pub chain in the UK called Witherspoons has banned use of all e-cigarette products in their premises, and their no smoking signs reflect this. Although currently there's no law in place preventing people from vaping in Witherspoons, it's the business owner's right to refuse entry or eject anybody that goes against company policy. But the majority of bars and clubs in the UK don't mind vaping as long as you're not bothering anyone. But a problem arises when more and more vapists go to that place because word has spread that it's an e-cig friendly place. Suddenly the business becomes a vapist's paradise and the vape's so thick in there that you can't see the person next to you. Regular customers may stop coming. That's when the business owner has to make the decision to allow the vapists to continue or ban them completely. This is a decision that a business owner shouldn't ever have to make because it may adversely affect their business and their income. They didn't set out to open a vape cafe, but they might be forced to adapt if they want to continue trading. It's important to note that, typically speaking, business owners are not worried about second-hand vape or public health. It's purely an atmosphere issue. Lastly, there are the vapists themselves. Vaping is an inherently selfish act, and it may be considered semi-social by those that have vapist friends, but they're all each fulfilling a selfish desire individually. Most vapists, being ex-smokers, have some experience of being ostracised or sent outdoors in the rain to satisfy their habit. So it stands to reason that a vapist would want to exercise their newfound ability to satisfy their habit indoors. But too few vapists are considering the wider implications of them vaping in public, indoors. There are some states in the USA where a licensed person is allowed to openly carry a firearm. Now, I realise that no one's going to get blown away by a Vamo V5, but what's comparable here is a person's desire to exercise what they perceive to be a right to the detriment of public opinion. There have been circumstances where groups of NRA members have deliberately entered a coffee shop, all with AR-15 semi-automatic rifles slung over their shoulders. And while this is perfectly legal, it's not okay. It makes people uncomfortable, and to do that displays a deliberate, flagrant disregard for the well-being of the people around you. So what excuse do you have for making people uncomfortable? None. There is no excuse. Smoking behaviour has become denormalised, and vaping is often criticised for renormalising such behaviour. If you watch my video Habit or Hobby, I go into more detail on habitual behaviour. As a serial vapist myself, I'm constantly aware of the reaction of those around me. It's an issue of courtesy and empathy. So what can we do to maintain a common courtesy around vaping? I don't want to impose any rules or regulations because every situation is different, but there's one thing that a vapist can bear in mind to avoid offending others. It's really simple. Don't be a dick about it. If you're in a restaurant, ask the staff if it's okay to use an e-cigarette. If they say yes, ask the people around you if they're alright with it. If they say no, go outside. If you're at a sporting event or in a crowd, there are ways to be discreet. If you try not to blow vapour towards people, blow it downwards, blow it upwards, get it out of the way. If you're on a train platform, walk to the end and be aware of which way the wind's blowing. And don't act like you have to advertise it or convert smokers to vaping. But the most important thing to remember is that if someone does approach you and ask you to stop, stop. Don't get righteous and quote the Health Act of 2006, Chapter 28, Part 1, Chapter 1, Section 1, Para 2 of the blah blah blah, whatever. Doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. Really, it's all about being a reasonable human being with empathy for those around you. Those militant vapists that vape with absolutely no forethought are ruining it for the rest of us. As much as you might want it to be, vaping in public is not a right, it's a privilege. And it's up to us to maintain that privilege through courtesy. As a side note, a couple of weeks ago, the World Health Organization called for a ban on all e-cigarette products indoors, very much like the smoking ban. And while they're being criticised for cherry-picking some of the science that supports their intention, we have to take this threat seriously. It's now critical that we vape responsibly, but I doubt that will discourage the World Health Organization from eventually fucking it up for all of us.